How would you like to improve your health and keep your family safe? You're listening to the Healthy Home Hacks podcast, where we firmly believe enjoying optimal health shouldn't be a luxury. Healthy Home Authorities and husband and wife team Ron and Lisa will help you create a home environment that will level up your health. It's time to hear from the experts. Listen in on honest conversations and gain the best tips and advice. If you're ready to dive in and improve your well-being and increase your energy, you're in the right place. All right, here are your hosts, bowel biologists, authors, media darlings, vicarious vegans, and avocado aficionados, Ron and Lisa Barris.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. Today, we are thrilled to have a very thoughtful and committed citizen with us who is an executive producer of the recently released film, Vaxxed III. Yes.
Children's Health Defense, of which many of you listeners may recognize as Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is the founder and former chairman of. CHD, in other words, is an organization committed to the best health for children in the U.S. and worldwide, whose mission is ending childhood health epidemics by eliminating toxic exposure, holding responsible those parties accountable, and establishing safeguards to prevent future harm of children's health. That's a big mouthful, and that's a lot of work, and they've been doing an incredible job. Listeners, have you ever heard this quote? A worried mother does better research than the FBI.
So true, right? One such mother is our guest today, Holly Tommey, the mother of Billy Tommey. Following an NMR vaccination at 13 months, Billy suffered seizures and was rushed to the hospital. Doctors advised the Tommeys that Billy was having a reaction to his MMR vaccination, but would recover. Instead, Billy lost several acquired skills and struggled to reach developmental milestones thereafter.
Billy was diagnosed with autism and requires care for the rest of his life. Holly is a film producer, an author, founding editor-in-chief of the world's preeminent autism magazine, the Autism File, and the co-founder of the Autism Media Channel. Holly is an outspoken autism advocate and founder of the Autism Trust in the UK and US. Her life mission has been committed to warning parents of the documented side effects of vaccines.
So getting back to the first Vaxxed film, Vaxxed from cover-up to catastrophe, which screened in over 180 countries and broke the taboo on childhood vaccine injuries. This film includes Dr. Brian Hooker recording Dr. William Thompson at the CDC, in which he admitted that the CDC did in fact shred evidence linking childhood vaccines to autism and other injuries.
Holly worked with CHD touring the US for 8 months producing Vaxxed III, Authorized to Kill, the third chapter of the groundbreaking series, which was released nationwide on September 18th, 2024. This documentary exposed medical and pharmaceutical malpractice initiated by the US government that resulted in harms of questionable health policies and poorly tested, rush-to-market vaccines that caused bodily harm during COVID and in many instances, death.
Holly visited hundreds of cities and towns, interviewing doctors, nurses, families, military personnel, patients, scientists, children, and many who witnessed the implementation of shady hospital practices, testifying on their vaccine injuries and the mandated hospital protocols.
Vaxxed III is a film that dares to blow the cover off the hospital atrocities, treating COVID-19 patients through their mandated protocols. Fueled by these powerful firsthand testimonies, Children's Health Defense Films, a division of CHD, created a documentary by the people, for the people.
Welcome to the show, Holly. You are a hero. Oh my goodness.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. You are brave, you are a truth seeker, you are a warrior, and we are so happy to have you with us today. So I want to dive right in, Polly, and just hear more about your story and how you got started on this challenging path that turned your life around.
Well, the first thing to know is, it was embarrassing to say now, but I was actually very pro-vaccine before this happened to my son. So to the point where I thought I only met really one person who had not vaccinated her children. I actually said to my husband, because she was taking her children to India, unvaccinated. And I actually said to my husband, do you think we should report her for
Oh,
doing it?
wow.
I want your listeners to know that I was that person. And I just couldn't understand why you would ever question someone who had a medical degree. I went to boarding school at a very young age in England, and they taught you to obey. You had to obey. And if you didn't obey authority or just anything that you were taught, then you were punished. And so I think looking back now at my life, I think I was pretty much brainwashed as a child. They said I was an unruly child. And that's probably because I was questioning things, right?
Right, right.
And then you were
I
like,
guess you were a smart child. You were a very highly intelligent child, they should say.
they crush you down until you learn to, obey authority. And so that's how I went through life, doing exactly as I was told, not questioning things that people, a teacher or, go to a policeman if you need help, all those kind of things. I was by the book of mother. So when my children to be vaccinated, I was the first person in the office. I would get there early to make sure I was
Wow.
on time. So I think it's important to know that because they call me the crazy anti-vaxxer, but you can't call me that. I vaccinated all of my children.
Wow.
Even when Billy, my second child, was vaccine injured from the MMR, I still took my third child, Toby.
You're kidding. Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
We want polio, right? So this has been the most mighty education for me. And I cannot thank the people of America enough for educating me from 2016 onwards in detail about the fact that there is no safe and effective vaccine. It does not exist. And even the CDC will tell you that themselves. It's on their website. So, and we know it, we've seen it. We've interviewing these thousands and thousands of parents and people around the country. There's not one vaccine that we haven't had either a death or a severe injury from. So I feel like I wish I had the information I had now and I could start again. Of the health of the unvaccinated, and I know I'm jumping all over the place right now, but the health of the unvaccinated is, I think, the biggest lie ever told. But now when we look at the health of these children and into adulthood, that's how our children should be. That's how God made them.
Right, exactly. You know what? We had Dr. Wakefield on this show, and he really reiterated, that mother's intuition. And I have friends, and actually we have clients who have vaccine injured children, and said they got a little whisper. They felt a little something in their stomach that something's not right. Did you feel that when you took Billy or any of your children in?
Everybody does, if we're really honest, because nobody wants to have their baby have a needle prick their skin, and it's all this horrible situation. So you're just thinking, okay, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Oh, my darling child, I'm so sorry you have to, but it's for your own good.
Right.
Horrific now, again, as I say this. And my first daughter had all her vaccines. She seemed fine. But in fact, now I know she's not. She's all her life. Oh, right. Oh, and you look back, like that was the vaccines. Why did she scream for a year? The first year of her life. And we call that the DTaP scream now. Because the baby vaccines, these babies, they scream and scream and scream. They're in utter pain.
Oh, God.
So I vaccinated her and then took Billy in that morning. As I said, I was the first into the doctor's office, 9:00 on the dot. He was quite snivelly. He'd had an ear infection. Well, now we know those early baby vaccinations, we give them lots of antibiotics. You're just going round and round in circles. Vaccinate, they're screaming, antibiotics, because apparently they've got an ear infection, which we now know was the DTaP scream. And so he was on countless antibiotics for ear infections, but he was on the ball. And in England, we have a 9-month check, which is a thorough check of your baby. And at 9 months, I've actually got that sheet where it says no parental concerns, the baby's babbling, picking things up, doing everything as he should be.
Right.
So when they say, oh, he was born like that, then he wouldn't have passed that 9-month check, would he? He wouldn't have passed it. So the vaccination, he couldn't do any of those things. None of them.
Right after. Did it happen? Did you notice it right away, or did it take days? Or
he only had the MMR, which is the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination, because in those days, he's 28 years old now. That was the only thing on the schedule, which is ridiculous if you look at what's on the schedule today.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What's the difference now? How many more vaccines is a child taking now than we were?
Like 72, right? Isn't it
It's day 72, yeah, but you really should, everybody should look up the CDC current schedule and you will be horrified.
Yeah, I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes because people are, they don't know that. I mean, I've had family relatives going, this can't be true. And I'm like, here it is. Here's the chart. Here's the graph. In the 1960s, let's say it was 8 or something, 8 vaccine doses required. And now it's 72, something like that. Is that right?
And well, back in 28 years ago, there was hardly any on the schedule. I mean, it's still enough to harm my son. Thank God there was only one on the schedule. I don't think he'd be alive today if he'd had any more pumped into him. So on antibiotics, weaken immune system, he gets the MMR. We take him home. He's very, very sleepy. And the doctor said, it's absolutely fine. Just give him lots of Tylenol. We call it Calpol in England, but lots of Tylenol. We now know Tylenol is not what you give before vaccination and after vaccination. Honestly, mother to mother out there, I wouldn't give Tylenol to anybody. It's so revolting what's in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he then starts having a seizure that evening, and it's a really big, his eyes are in the back of his head. He's convulsing. And so we just scoop him up and we rush him to the hospital. And they said, what's happened today? And we said, well, he just had the MMR this morning. Otherwise, he's been sleeping. And they said, okay, it's very, very, very common to have seizures following the MMR. It's totally normal, totally common. And if you look at the insert of the MMR, it's right there in bold writing how common it is. So the bold writing on the insert,
wow.
It says common reaction, sore, pain, and seizures in bold. So the doctors are right. It is a common reaction.
Wow.
That doesn't make it okay.
Right. But now, I guess informed consent, right? Going back to informed consent, like no one's asking to look at the literature. So they're just trusting, people, mothers, with everyone's going in and saying, well, the doctor's telling me it's safe. So it's safe. And we're going to get into the COVID, which didn't have informed consent in a minute. But I mean, if you saw that, maybe you would have said, I don't think so. I don't want to go through with this, right?
Anyone would. I see, this is the thing about informed consent. There's their informed consent and what we should be getting is a true informed consent. So even today, they'll tell you it's safe and effective. I just had a young mum telling me how the hospital was telling her that the vitamin K shot at birth is totally fine. It's just vitamins. Don't even worry about it. It's not. It's got a black box warning on the insert. It is extremely dangerous with polysorbate 80, and you do not need it. And all the fear mongering of your baby's brain will bleed out by the time you get to your car if you don't take it, that's still going on today.
Wow.
In my day, I didn't think to question it because when they told me Billy needed the MMR, otherwise he'd go deaf, which is ironic, why would you question it? And that's why I'm so angry with my younger self that I didn't, I went to France. I traveled all the way to France to get an organic baby crib.
Oh, wow.
Toxic
Wow.
free. Everything was organic, wooden toys, no, but then you hand your baby over to a doctor and just say, do what you will. I trust you. And they put poison in your child.
Wow.
And that's what it is, poison.
Oh my gosh. That's woo. And it's that white lab coat thing that people just instantly assume that if they're in a white lab coat, that everything they say is accurate and true and helpful. And, you've got doctors who don't take any courses whatsoever on nutrition. If they're lucky, maybe a semester, they don't learn about toxins. They don't learn about environmental toxins. They're not taught about that. And then you've also got doctors who went to medical school so long ago. They're not up to date with, what's going on currently with the chemicals in our environment and all of that. So why we have been brainwashed, like you said, on a mass scale to not question authority is so unhealthy in any area.
Yeah, and the media doesn't help. I mean, the media, people need to turn off mainstream news because these people are out there to make you afraid. And that's what we saw in COVID as well. But going back to the doctors, in Vaxxed II, which is also completely free on our site, we interviewed a load of medical professionals and we asked them all the same question. How much training did you get on vaccinations in medical school? They didn't get any. All they got, one of them got any. All they were told is vaccines are the savior of mankind. And this is a schedule. And if you don't give these vaccines to the babies and the children, then they're going to die. And so they basically believed what they were taught in medical.
Right.
I don't really give them a pass, though, because you see what happens to our children. If you're a pediatrician and you're listening, you see when we come back to you and say, my child had this terrible reaction, my child's not giving me eye contact or his high-pitched scream since the shot. And you then tell us it's not the vaccines. So you guys have blood on your hands. You need to do the right thing, like Dr. Paul Thomas has and all the other, Dr. Larry Pileski. The really good pediatricians have come out and said that they've now realized that what they did was not okay and they're not do it anymore. And they've exposed it. We need more people. And they've just said as well that they've been paid. Pediatricians get paid a bonus incentive for every child they vaccinate. And that's why they get to cross with you in the pediatrician's office when you say, no, I'm not going to do it, or you ask a question.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
they
you get shunned. Yeah, we have moms who have told us they've been kicked out of the offices. They can't come back there anymore if they didn't comply with every single shot, right? There's like not even a choice. Well, there is, but they make you, they coerce you, like we're going to get into that and how they did that with the COVID vaccine. People didn't feel like they had a choice, even though, well, a lot of times they didn't, right? They were going to lose their job or whatever. And so moving forward with Billy, so then he is under your care now. Is that lifelong?
Yeah, he's 28 years old. He will never live independently. He's doing way better than we were ever. We were told when he was 3 years old that he would never live a life with purpose, which is a terrible thing to tell a parent, or speak, or particularly walk very well, or any of those things, that we were better off just putting him in a home and getting on with our lives. But there was no way we were going to do that. My husband had to retrain as a clinical nutritionist just to understand the biology of what was going on in our son. And so we've done a lot of things. And I have to say, again, I don't give out medical advice or anything, but I will say this. The top thing that has helped our son is diet. So if anyone's listening, please look at the diet of your child, because anything with any too much sugar or any additives, E numbers, as we say in England, all that stuff in the food is going to affect their behavior. It affects our behavior.
Right.
So frankly, why would it not affect theirs? And the minute we cut out gluten and dairy and all kinds of dyes and sugary things, is a different person.
Yes.
But
I've heard that.
He's hard to control when he gets bad food.
Oh, okay. So I've heard that. We know a mother who opened a gluten-free vegan bakery here in Southern California because she had 2 children that were starting to be autistic when they were born. And she quickly took them off gluten and dairy. And they actually did a 180 because she caught it really, really early. And now she has a bakery, Sensitive Sweets, and, helps all the mothers that need to find these healthier alternatives, because it can be challenging to get when your child wants a birthday cake or cookies or whatever, sometimes it can be hard to find that. So she caters to that. So really, I'm glad you brought that up, because parents, even with an autistic child, if they do that now, it'll lessen symptoms, would you say, for them? I mean, you're not giving advice, but is that what you generally see with your child?
Well, for Billy, it's been a game changer. Obviously, we've had to do other things, correct his gut and various. My husband, thank God, is a genius at this stuff now. And so the minute we corrected Billy's gut, because, when your child is vaccine injured, first of all, to the people listening, if you're in doubt about whether to vaccinate or not, at least wait. Because once that needle goes in, there is no going back. There is no going back at all. If that poison is in your child's body and you can do everything you can to get it out, it's too late. So at least wait until you really, really know. Because I honestly believe that if you all knew what was in those vaccines and how they were made, there is no way you would put that in yourself, children. And this is what we're working on now, is exposing everything that goes in every single shot, so people really know what they're doing, rather than listening to these doctors.
Right. I mean, we've got animal cells, correct? And formaldehyde and
kidneys. I mean, it's disgusting.
Thimerosal. And I think that's the other thing is people, like you said, they're not shown a list. No one's being shown a list of ingredients. That would be a game changer. You don't go and buy food at the grocery store without looking at the ingredients. At least we don't. Right? You wouldn't do that. So why would you put something in your body without knowing the ingredients? So that needs to change. Good for you guys. It's incredible. Really, really incredible.
Quick question, Polly. So regarding the UK, the childhood vaccine schedule, is it the same as the US, or is there differences?
It's different. In fact, I was looking at it quite recently. I was horrified at the UK 8-week baby. I think that's worse than America, but outside of that, we are way worse in America. I call myself an American now. I am a citizen.
You are now.
Welcome, Polly. Welcome.
I know, I love it. I'm so excited. But I mean, both schedules are horrific. Know that. And they're out of control, because they can be out of control. And the bullying and the fear mongering. And, I'm just watching just a minute ago before we did this show, because everybody's freaking out about our chairman on leave, Bobby Kennedy. And measles going to come back. Polio is going to come back. You know what? Here's the thing. Polio, the interviews I did of people that had polio all got polio from the vaccine. All of them. All of them.
Wow.
And if you look around at children, say, what is polio? Someone tell me what polio is. The crippling effect, is it not, of a child? They can't walk, or they're in a wheelchair, or they've got curved over. Now, I've never seen so much scoliosis in my entire life. I've never seen so many kids in wheelchairs. I've never seen more polio-like symptoms than I am seeing today as I travel around on the bus. So don't tell me polio's gone and it's going to come back. It's everywhere. You just change
Yeah.
transverse
Just changing the
myelitis or whatever
name.
it
Yeah.
is.
Right. Change the sleight of hand, changing the
Like
name.
they changed the name with flu to COVID. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I'm sorry.
They
Rock?
change, yeah, they do this all the time, guys, like marketers. I mean, they're changing the name of aspartame that they already did, I think. Aspartame, saccharin, got them under different names now. So when you do look at an ingredient label, you don't think that stuff's in there. So it's really hard that we have to be in a world where we feel like we have to be investigators on top of our full-time jobs and parents and all these things that we have to juggle. Now we can't just trust stuff. Ron and I have been doing this work for 18 years, educating people on the chemicals, in your home and in your personal care products. And same thing. You can't just trust that there's a green leaf and it says natural, that's healthy, because it's probably not, and you've got to dig deep. So I think the paradigm, would you say, do you feel the shift happening? There's so much exposure and awareness right now in these conversations that you couldn't even have before were very taboo.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It's changing. And here's some good news for your listeners. I have never seen so many vaccine-free babies being born where parents are just standing firm and saying, no, we're not having, and many of them are like, it didn't happen to my family, but I saw my neighbor's child. I saw that child was fine. And then I saw that child was not fine after the vaccine. The word is getting out because people are going on their social media or wherever it is, and they are telling the truth about what happened during COVID or to their children. And they don't care if they get taken down. They know the most important thing they can do is warn the next generation of the real dangers of vaccinations. And now, after doing Vaxxed III, the real dangers of hospitals as well. That was something we weren't looking for, but it came to us so strong that we had to report on it. I don't enjoy reporting on these things. I want everyone to know, but we have to do it. There's no better news. There's no better clinical study than the people themselves.
Yeah.
That's the real science is back. The ones that took the shots, the ones who didn't take the shots. Who is healthy?
Yeah.
Who is the healthiest of us all?
Right. And we talked with Dr. Wakefield about what a lot of people don't know is the pharmaceutical companies have immunity. Can you shed a little light on that? Immunity from anything bad, any death or harm being caused to your child.
Well, let me put it this way. If you take your child in for vaccination and it gets hurt, which it will do in some way, shape or form, you are on your own. You can't sue anybody. You won't get any help. You'll get told you're crazy. The vaccine manufacturers have complete liability. You can report it to a system called VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. You can report it. And some of them won't get up there, or a lot of them get taken down. And you're not going to get compensated. In fact, your life financially is going to change beyond belief because one of you is going to be the carer for that child for the rest of its life. So everything, your family members will start fighting with you. The siblings of the child will be affected as well because everything is going to change. Mummy and daddy now can't go on these amazing holidays or go out to a restaurant like they used to with you. Autistic child that's vaccine injured can't sit still at a table and nobody wants to be around them. And when they get to puberty, it's even worse. So no, the vaccine manufacturers who make these vaccines, you will not get a penny from them. And to be fair to them, if that's even possible, they are warning you about their own vaccines in the inserts. If you take an insert out of the vial, and I don't mean the one the pharmacist is going to give you, the little printout one that they've done to make you feel better, the proper insert in the MMR or any vaccine, if you look at that, you'll be horrified. That's Merck and all the other big manufacturers saying, hey, we told you it was in there. I'm sorry you didn't bother.
Right. Legally, even though they're protected under a law that was passed in 1986 that gave them full immunity, even beyond that, they're saying, well, there it was. There was the informed consent, right?
Encephalitis is in all of these. And that's what happens to our children. Their brains swell. Autism, that like my son has got now, is brain injury.
Oh, wow. What is the ingredient you said?
It's encephalitis. His brain, and in fact, the nurse measured him when we went to our health checks and his head was swollen. And it still is swollen to this day. If you look at my son, you can see it swollen. His front bits are swollen as well. So that's what it is. It's brain injury. And you can't really fix that. You can make their lives a lot better. You can improve them beyond some people to the point where they get their diagnosis taken away. But when I speak to these parents, if they take one bad bit of food or another shot, another vaccine or something, they're back right down in that.
Yes, right. Because then their body burden, their toxicity is so high, it doesn't take much. Now, did Billy have a gene, the MTHFR or anything like that?
He don't have any of that. No,
None of that.
I understand about this MTHFR gene that a lot of people are having. And great, get yourself tested if you've got that. Absolutely not. But this vaccines, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, whether you have faith or you don't have faith, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what color your skin is or
Yeah.
any of that, it will come for you because you are injecting poison in yourself or your child. And this is not alarmist stuff. This is a fact. Like I said, you wouldn't, if you put all the ingredients of, I don't know, take any shot and you put it on the table and said, right, can you spoon in a little bit of aluminum, a little bit of that into your child? These toxic, dangerous chemicals. You would say absolutely not.
Right. No way, Jose. Yeah.
We're putting it through a needle. And don't think I'm judging anyone because I was that person.
Right. You didn't know.
I get it. But now we're warning you and you need to hear us well because we don't want you. The reason why we're doing this is we don't want you to feel the pain.
Right.
And it's very painful of having a child that is for lifelong. He's never going to get married.
Right.
He's never going to drive a car. He's never going to experience life as God intended for him because I didn't think. I just allowed him to have a vaccine that nearly killed him.
Right. Wow. That's powerful. And you know, the other things like you kind of shed upon that comes along with having a vaccine or just injured child, you know, the stress on the marriage, the financial stress, like you said, the social, not being able to do the things that just everyone takes for granted, being able to go out to eat and not have it be a scene or whatever, you know, that's a lot of a burden on a person and a family. And so, you know, it's not just what the child is going through. Like you said, it affects everybody.
It's devastating.
Which I don't think people talk about enough, you know, even the financial aspect, because it's like your whole world gets uprooted, right?
Well, suddenly you've got to buy organic or gluten-free food, which is good. We should all be doing that. But back in the day, it was very expensive and hard to find. Now it's much easier to find.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've got to find treatments for your child because the guts, they've got diarrhea the whole time. And you've got to get speech therapy in because you don't know why your child's not speaking. And you throw money at anybody that can say, I'll help you, which is, again, there's a lot of people out there trying to make money out of parents because we're so desperate.
Right.
But out of all of this, you know, I have met the most amazing people ever. And I do thank Billy for taking one for the team because if he hadn't have done that, I would have gone on and given Gardasil to my daughter, potentially him. I would have taken the COVID shot. Why would I have not? I wouldn't have known.
Right. Oh, wow.
Pro-vaccine person I used to be.
Right.
And so I'm very grateful to my son for giving us the education of this because, like, I have grandchildren now that have no vaccines. And
Oh, wow.
Well, thank you, Billy. Thank you to Billy.
I know. I thank Billy and all the others that helped.
And all the other children who did that. Yeah.
And you, Tolly, what a hero you are. I mean,
I know.
What an
and your husband, you guys came together and turned something horrific into something really incredible and powerful, creating these films. I know your husband is a film producer, right? He's the executive producer. And it's just pretty incredible what you guys have done. And can you tell us a little what it was like to be on the road for 8 months working on Vaxxed II, which is the people's truth, and then also Vaxxed III, authorized to kill?
So 2016, the first Vax film came out. And so Andy Wakefield, Del Bigtree, and myself were started to go to promote the whole film and everything we're doing. We'd go to all these theaters. And what happened was, because my story's in the film, a lot of parents would start coming up to me and saying, this happened to my child, this happened to my child. And then Andy and Del would start talking about the science, and Del would talk to the politicians. And so I took the parent stories. And after a bit, I thought, this is not working because I need the world to hear these stories, not just me. And so I started going live on, it's called Periscope, but they took it down.
Yeah, they did take it down.
Right.
Took it down straight after Vaxxed II came out. And we said, thank God for Periscope. And then suddenly it disappeared. But anyway, that's when we realized that the power of the parents, we would go live to the world. And it was this huge success. So we then decided that instead of flying everywhere, we'd just get a bus and get down on the road with the people and just stop. And everywhere we went in this first bus, stop at the gas station, wherever it is, people would come up and tell their story. We couldn't go anywhere without people saying, please, can I tell your story? They'd be running after the bus and we would go.
I wondered that because you could tell you had such a good turnout everywhere, that it was so well received. Did you get any of the opposite? Did you have like people screaming or shouting or any of that?
We got a few people that would follow us. And one man in particular was following us all the time.
Oh.
And banging drums and making noises while we're live to stop us. I mean, it was kind of crazy stuff.
Oh, wow.
And when I went to Australia, they've got the worst trolls, if you like, in the whole world.
Oh, wow.
They're probably paid trolls, though. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I think they are, yeah. I got banned from Australia for 3 years for just listening to stories out there.
Wow.
So, I mean, you know what? It's just really weird behavior, isn't it? I mean, if I'm doing something illegal, but I'm literally listening to people's stories. And just so you know, the same stories in Australia in New Zealand, in Canada, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, as they are here in America. This is a worldwide problem, and everybody's saying the same story. And the biggest fear of the dark side, as I call them, is that the parents speak out. That is their biggest fear. It doesn't matter if Wakefield or Del Bigtree or anyone or Bobby Kennedy speaks out, because they can just say they're crazy. But
which they do.
When we speak out en masse, all of us together, and tell the story of what happened to our vaccinated and unvaccinated children, the true study, that's when they start panicking. And that's why anybody listening that's tried to tell a story, you will get taken down. I haven't been on Facebook for I don't know how many years. They won't let me on there.
Right. It's great. The censorship, the attempt at censorship is crazy, but there's so many brave people. I mean, I see it on Instagram every day, and it's just so inspiring that people, because it takes the brave person to encourage the other people, right? And then the more you see other people speak out, you get braver and braver. And it's a really beautiful thing. We are powerful human creators with, we're light beings, and we need to not live in that fear and darkness and shame and guilt, and like just get out there and speak and connect, and everything that, like you said, they're threatened by, right?
Absolutely. And if they force you to wear a mask on a plane, then don't get on that plane. If they force you to have a vaccine because you're at work, then find another job. And I know that's hard, and people say it's easier to say, but if you don't do those things, this is going to continue. And if you keep taking just one shot because you need a job, I've seen on the road enough people that died from those shots.
The one shot.
Cannot ever have a job again if you take one of those shots. And they're going to do it again. They're coming back. They're going to
coming
try.
back. You think so?
They're going to try. I mean, if Bobby's in, I think we're a little bit safe for a few years, but not over. They're not going to just crawl away and say, that was fun. Never mind.
And Bobby, for those that don't know, he vaccinated his children too. So, people tout him as the anti-vaxxer as well. And he actually is very public about that, right? He vaccinated his children. So like you, he bought into the system until he did the research and spent time understanding and learning. Because on the surface, it looks and sounds safe and great. But when you get in there and dig, you can't help but see the truth, right? And then Del Bigtree, does he have a vaccinated child as well?
No, he does not have vaccinated children.
Oh, he's just passionate about this.
I don't think I can talk on behalf of him. I don't think that would be right. But I think you'll find that he did his research.
Oh, yeah. He's so smart. We love him. But that's amazing that he doesn't have a vaccinated child, and he's still so, same with Bobby, right? I mean, just passionate about children's health. I mean, that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. Why would you be mad or judge anyone who's trying to improve the health of children?
Absolutely.
Have these healthy conversations, have these debates, have these discussions. But why would you get angry at someone who's actually dedicating their life, risking their life to do that? It blows my mind.
It's crazy. Hey, Polly, are you open to taking a question from a caller?
I'll do my best.
Okay, good. So we have Amy on the line. Amy, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, Polly.
Hi, Amy. You have Polly's ear here. Can you let us know what your question is and why you're calling, Amy?
I want to understand a little bit around if you've done anything to reverse or detox your son, and if so, if you can share some of the things you've done. I have a similar story to yours with my son, and it's taken me 19 years to come to some of the conclusions and treatments that I've come up with, many just within the last year. But I was just curious to see what some of the paths you've taken to kind of heal and reverse some of the damage done to your son.
Amy, can you share a little bit more in regards to what that challenge was, if you don't mind?
Sure. So I have a son who's now 19, who has always, had a lot of health issues. I have 3 children, but my middle child, for, various reasons, had health issues, many of which, in my opinion as a mama bear, I believe without a shadow of a doubt, started when he had MMR. And believe it or not, I didn't realize that until 2020, when I started looking at vaccines in general, which I think many people did. I had a son who was a little bit older than him and counted, I think we had given him 79 vaccines before 2020. So I started just kind of unwinding a lot of the health issues that my son has had and researching books and things like that. And I came up with a doctor through my research. He was a pediatrician. He had worked since 1986 as a pediatrician, and he had given hundreds and thousands of vaccines over his career. And in 2016, he started a practice of treating vaccine-injured children. And so a friend of mine who was going down the path with me had already discovered him and was having some great results from treating her child. And I can tell you some of the things that we've done, but I was curious to see if Polly's uncovered a lot of these kinds of treatments. But first, what we did is we did a test to see if he had MTHFR, and he had a double variant of that. So with that, that doctor asked me for all my medical records for this child. And I sent the doctor the medical records. Keep in mind, he's not an MD anymore. He actually left the medical field he's not taking insurance. It has to be under your own cash. And he was basically a health coach was what he, went under. And so when we looked at the medical records, he was like, wow, this is really interesting. Did you realize that on 1/17/06, your child, when he was 1 year old, had MMR? And did you realize that on 1/18/06, your child was rushed to an emergency room via an ambulance with seizures? And believe it or not, I hadn't even put the two and two together, and neither had my doctor. So he categorically went down a lot of the medical issues that my child started to have. He was wetting the bed. He couldn't hold his urine. He had ear, nose, and throat issues and allergies. He ended up with his tonsils and adenoids out at 3, which this doctor said, is also an MMR injury. By 5, he went into renal failure. He lost his kidney. We were at urologists. We couldn't figure out why his kidney failed. And, we went through all of these kind of health issues that my son had, OCD, ADHD, ear ringing. I can't even tell you how many issues this child has had over the years. He even got diagnosed with something called Alice in Wonderland syndrome, which is a form of seizures that is caused by your frontal lobe, swelling in the frontal lobe. We did end up finding out that he had 5 heavy metals in his brain. And so we've been doing various things, reduce the heavy metals, open up his methylation path. We even had to treat an old strep infection in between his ears. Just a ton of stuff. But I would be very happy to share with you guys that he is thriving. His OCD is gone. His ear ringing is gone. He is just much more stable, in terms of depression and anxiety. And I just believe that we are on a path to wellness, but it took me 19 years to get here. So,
and a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money not covered under insurance. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, with Billy, my husband did actually, thank God, he did a lot of treatment. We did a lot of stuff, a lot of supplements, a lot of the gut thing, detoxing. He had Valtrex, which is an antiviral because of the measles in his gut. Threw everything at that child. He was the first child in the UK to have secretin, the pig hormone. Before, we didn't know any better. And at the time we thought we had nothing to lose because Billy was so bad. He was just sitting as a child, just thrashing his head against the wall the whole time, no speech, nothing. And so we really just went for it. But really for us, it was the diet and still is the diet, but cleaning up his gut through various ways that my husband did was the first thing that happened where he started to speak.
Wow.
Did you try the high dose vitamin A for the measles? That was one thing that he found was the measles is in my son's gut as well. So we did high dose.
He did. I wish my husband was here right now because he could answer your questions. But yes, I really mean it when I say we pretty much tried everything.
Yeah.
And we're stopped now because we're at a level where we know how to manage, and Billy's sort of fine and he's not high functioning. Your son sounds high functioning. Billy couldn't tell us if he had ringing in his ears. I don't think he would understand what that meant. But, he's alive.
Wow.
But your story is so similar to Billy's. Billy also had to have his adenoids out and had those little grommets, tubes in his ears. It's the same story. We hear this over and over again. These are the MMR gut problems, the MMR hearing stuff and everything. So many children, and they're still doing it today.
I know.
Trying to take their adenoid down tube. It actually breaks their eardrums.
Wow.
In my opinion, is not a good thing to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my son's a musician and he wears earplugs all the time. And the ear ringing has really put a hindrance on him being a musician. But he's got into the Los Angeles College of Music and he's going to go because of all the work that we've done to stop the ear ringing. He still has it, but it's to the point where he can now be a musician again. But again, I think, Polly, your story and my story, I have so many wellness warrior friends that I've found and become friends with just over the last 4 years. And when you speak to them, when you read RFK's book, when you start to connect the dots, it's criminal. I mean, it's absolutely, incomprehensible that many of these issues could be prevented. And unless you're like us and literally throwing the kitchen sink at every which thing that you can and not taking, no for an answer. And, I'm sure you're still doing stuff for your son. I mean, that's a lot of work. And then to get the negative response from your doctors, I actually got fired from my pediatrician with my son who had 79 vaccines and he had one left in 2020 when he was 18. And we said, no more, we're done. And she literally asked us to leave her office. And this is a woman who helped give birth to this child 18 years before.
Whoa.
She and I,
unbelievable.
She basically said to me, without the meningococcus booster, he would be a danger to the other children. And I said, please give him a titer test. If we can just give him a titer test, maybe he doesn't need the booster. And she wouldn't. So we got fired. And I found out later that kept her from a $40,000 payout. If we would have completed the schedule, I think that would have been the last one when he was 18. She would have gotten a $40,000 bonus.
Wow. It's like you were listening to the whole beginning of this interview because literally Polly talked about that. They get paid to complete, right? It's to complete the schedule. And the other thing I wanted to mention that Polly had brought up earlier was the big thing she noticed with Billy was taking him off gluten and dairy. Did you try that with your son? Yeah. Okay.
So it's funny that you say that because he recently got off dairy, gluten, and sugar. This was probably 2 years ago. And he is so paranoid about anything that has added sugar or added dairy or added gluten because the results when he does eat gluten are immediate. He notices issues immediately. So he's very, very stringent on that. And he has a very, very strict diet. But absolutely, we've noticed a huge change in just, for me, and I don't know, Polly, if you noticed this with the anxiety. He had really bad OCD and really bad anxiety and a lot of mental issues. And that is, I would say, almost gone.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of anxiety we get. Billy has gluten or anything like that. It's a nightmare. We're in for a nightmare.
Yep.
Until we can get it out of it. It takes a long time for the gluten to come out of your body, by the way.
How long does it take after?
3 months.
What do you think, all of you guys, around, is it really the gluten or is it the glyphosate? I mean,
glyphosate.
Yeah.
It's a great question. It probably is the glyphosate, but I'm not taking any risks, nor is Billy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's a really good point to bring up. So for people listening that think, I'm going to go and try the gluten-free diet, you're going to have to go organic gluten-free because you follow Zen Honeycutt from Mums Across America. They are saying the gluten-free food, and it's so high in glyphosate, and that is going to our children's brains, well, all of our brains, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's expensive. There's nothing cheap about having a vaccine-injured child, I can tell you that much.
Thank you for bringing that up about the glyphosate too. And the wheat is hybridized today. Dr. Amy Myers, she's pretty outspoken on all this with the gut issues. She talked about it's the hybridization of the wheat that our body looks at as a foreign substance because it's not like the wheat. Because, back in the day, grandparents were like, well, we didn't have all these issues. Yeah, you didn't have hybridized wheat and you didn't have glyphosate. So
right. I think that's a good comment just in the general, I have a skincare line that's organic and I always hear, we use Johnson & Johnson, we use that. And it wasn't the same. Nothing's been since 1986, it was an explosion of chemicals and GMOs and preservatives and process and spraying the skies and all of that. I mean, this is not what our parents grew up in 50 years ago. This is a completely different time. And that's the conversation. Everybody says the same thing about the vaccines. I have a lot of friends that are like, well, I had all those vaccines. No, you didn't. I was born in 73. I had a very small percentage of vaccines compared to the 79 my son Diego had. I mean, a small percentage. I think I had maybe 8.
That's what we were talking about earlier. Yeah. What was it? 8, I think. And it's insane. It looks like if you looked on a pie chart, I mean, the way it just spikes up.
Well,
And
yeah.
it keeps growing. The list keeps growing.
Well, the good news is I was 13 in 1986 where the Liability Act was passed. So I had already had most of my vaccines. But if you were born in 86, and after, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Amy, before you go, what is the name of your organic skincare company? We can put that in the show notes later.
Oh, it's Authentic Skin Remedies.
Authentic Skin Remedies.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. And thank you,
Thank you so
Polly,
much,
Yes,
Amy.
Polly,
And congratulations.
I love everything you're doing, and God bless your son, and God bless your husband and you for not giving up and leaving no stone unturned.
Well, thank you, Amy. Much love to you. It's lovely to meet you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And congrats on your son's recovery. So appreciate you calling.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Well,
We covered a lot there.
thank you, Polly, for taking a call there. We do appreciate that. Getting back to Vaxxed III, right? I am curious, circling back to the movie, how did you get professional medical and military personnel to trust you to share their personal COVID vaccine injury stories? Especially the nurses who risked their career talking about the risky and deadly hospital mandates treating patients with remdesivir and ventilators. Like, how did you do that?
I think the thing is, everybody knew from the first Vax film and then the second one, and then they knew vaccine was coming out. I think they knew that we were a trusted source, that we were not going to do anything awful with these stories. They know who we are. And also, the other thing to know is there was nowhere else for them to tell their stories. And so many of them would say, thank you. They would thank us for giving them a voice. Especially the people with dead babies and stuff, because they're told, oh, your baby was going to die anyway, so go away and stop complaining. And so they were really grateful to have this platform to talk. But it was fascinating when the medical coders and people like that, people working deep inside the hospitals, were coming out because they said they couldn't live with this information anymore. And they had to get it off their chest. They had to tell the world, this is what happened. And it sort of like makes them feel better as well, if you like. But everyone's doing it because they don't want this to ever happen again.
Right. And, getting into this, the COVID vaccine, which is obviously what the movie focuses on, and the hospital protocols, is kind of going back again to that informed consent. So, we've had doctors tell us, like, the basic law of like becoming a doctor, the rule, the mantra is you don't do anything without informed consent, like an underlying thread of being a doctor. Yet that all went out the window, right? During COVID, under the guise of fear, which we now know the things that they claimed. The vax didn't prevent people from getting COVID. It didn't prevent transmission. It didn't do the things that they promised people that it would do. And yet nobody was given any information. I heard the sheet, if you took out the pamphlet, it was blank. And it was
blank. It said left unintentionally blank would be written. I saw them.
Wow.
So it's intentionally blank. Because the first thing to remember is this. It was a pandemic. They declared a pandemic, which means that they can roll everything out as EUA, Emergency Use Authorization. This is why the film's called Authorized to Kill.
Oh, gosh.
It's always under Emergency Use Authorization. So they can basically get away with murder, which is what they did. And so with the shots, the people, it was really sad. I felt terrible for these people, again, because I used to be them and believe. Most of the people that were getting these shots did it because they really genuinely thought that they were going to save their neighbor or save granny or whatever. They did it for them, not even for themselves. And so that's what was hard. I mean, and you've got to remember that we were interviewing really the loved ones, because most of these people are dead. There was so much death on the bus. So most of the stories of the vaccine injury of the COVID shots are death stories.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was shocked watching the film how many, and also after just one dose, how many deaths.
Oh, and don't think it's just the mRNA. Everyone's banging on about the mRNA. Yes, it's horrific, the mRNA, but the Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca, equally as bad. We're just not hearing about them because we can't be possibly talking about approved shots or like, that might mean they're going to question the MMR or the DTaP or something like that. So let's stick to the mRNA, which but let's not forget that we had a lot of and with the Johnson & Johnson, we saw a lot of mental health issues arising, which I thought was really interesting. Behavior patterns of almost schizophrenia going on from the Johnson & Johnson shot. And there was too many for it to be a coincidence.
Right.
But it was horrific. The ones that are injured, the Moderna had the worst injury of all.
Really? Oh, wow.
They were all saying the same thing. They were burning inside their skin. Their bodies felt like they were on fire.
Wow.
screaming. People saying, actually, they would rather just die. They don't even want to live here anymore. The pain was so bad. Pfizer was bad as well. But it was interesting to us when we heard it was a Moderna. We knew what they were going to say about the
Really? That's interesting.
felt like their body was on fire.
I remember those memes going around, the person's like keeling over and like, I feel like I'm on fire. And they're like, that's because it's working. That means it's doing its job. It's kind of like going back to that pain is pleasure. Like, no, pain is not pleasure. If your body is reacting out like that and telling you something's not right, listen to it. Like, listen to that intuition, trust your gut, and even like at the beginning, like we would tell people, well, why not just wait? Why not wait until there's more information on the, health effects of this, or until you could get like a list of what's in it or understand this technology better? Why would you just blindly put it in? But, you make a good point that a lot of the people, the brainwashing was like the fear mongering and the media, and people were scared and didn't know what to do, and brainwashed by trusting anything and everything they hear. And so it was such a crazy time. It was a very, very difficult time for everybody, whether you took the jab or you didn't. Nobody was not suffering in some way. Because if you didn't take it, you were stoned. And if you did take it, then either had consequences or saw people or did, or so many people regret it. I'm not saying that someone listening might say, no, they took it and they're happy. There's certainly that group, but we're on the other side now. And now we're looking back and seeing these things and saying, what can we do different? How can we make this better?
I'm curious, Polly, do you have statistics on what percentage of people actually at least had one dose of the COVID vaccine? Do you happen to know?
No, we don't have those stats. Our science department might have those stats.
No, I was just curious. I know there were mixed studies that something close to 80% of the US, or I don't know if that was even.
But I know a lot of people stopped after the first jab because they got so ill. And you've got to remember, the president was going out going, this is the pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Oh,
so
yeah.
these people are feeling like, I've spoken to people in the military who stood firm until they couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
One day I hope we get to expose how bullied and horrifically treated those military personnel were. I mean, we had stories of them being thrown into, military jail, being stopped, not being given the job that they've been paid. So they might be a pilot, but now they've got to sort baggage out. They're treated so badly.
Yeah.
Many of them just couldn't take it anymore and went and got the shot.
We saw that with a lot of people too. The pressure mounting. Or, well, you could not take it and work here, but you've got to stick that long cotton swab up your nose every day. They were making certain employees do that daily.
I interviewed someone not that long ago who is brain injured from one of those swabs.
I know.
And we have got injuries of that. So listen up. If when they come out with the bird flu or whatever, with those ridiculous tests, please don't do those tests. Don't.
And you feel like that's going to happen? Not that, right? You think that's
Well, I think they're not going to go away, these people. I mean, they're far too quiet now. I think we can all admit. I mean, when Trump got in last time, everyone was losing their minds. Now they're just like, it's just weird. Something's going on. I can't imagine that they're going to go quietly away. So maybe they'll let Bobby do his time, and then 4 years' time, they'll put it back and come out of the pandemic. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they'll release something like they did when Trump was in last time. But they're not going to sit back and say, oh, sorry, we lost. Off you go then. Go and get us out of the World Health Organization. Get rid of all the vaccines.
Yeah, they're not going to go down without a fight. What do you think is the bigger picture behind this? Is it greed? Is it control? Is it money? What do you think?
Because I'm so far down. If you'd asked me this question a few years ago, I'd have said, look, I don't want to go there. It's too dark. But there's no doubt in my mind now that this is a depopulation agenda. Of course, money, power, one world order, World Economic Forum. Of course, once you look into all of those things, you can see where they're going. But for sure, I mean, they've already achieved a massive depopulation. Let me tell you why. People like my son, Billy, and there's 1 in 32 children or people now on the autistic spectrum. That's how it...
1 in 32. Yeah. And what's that stat real quick, Polly? Like I heard Bobby say this recently. It used to be like 1 in 100,000?
Then it would be 1 in 100,000. When Billy was diagnosed, I couldn't find anything. I had to go to a library and find an old medical book to look it up. Anyone with autism? Now everybody knows someone with autism.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But so the Billies of this world are never going to have children. It's a fact. Billy's never going to have a child. And there's the children who are paralyzed from the waist down. And let me tell you, there's a lot out of there. They're never going to have children. The Gardasil girls whose ovaries have shut down because they've gone through early menopause from the HPV shot, and there's many of them, they're not going to have children. The dead babies, and there's a lot of them, they're not going to have children. It goes on and on and on and on. So they've already achieved a lot of what they wanted to do. and they're going to keep going until they've got whatever their population of the elite. And it sounds crazy. If I was listening to myself a few years ago, I'd say, you're a nutter.
Mm-hmm.
But quite honestly, when you really dive down deep and you look at it all, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's
No.
none of it.
The
All there,
puzzle pieces.
all there in front of your face. It's right there. Go do your research or listen to media outlets that are not mainstream media sponsored by Pfizer and Merck and all those. And
Yeah.
you get that.
Are you fearful for your safety doing the work that you do?
No, not at all. I have a lot of faith. So if they put a bullet in my head, no, I'm going. So I'm feeling good about that.
Right. We know where you're going to.
I just don't think that you can choose to live in fear, and that's for everybody what they do, or you can choose to be afraid. And I'm not going to do it because I don't want. A lot of people don't want to do it because I want to upset my mum or whatever it is. Or you can just say, sod it. I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to tell the truth, and I'm going to get as many people to stand with me collectively as one big family, tribe, whatever you want to call us. And we are going to fight for the next generation, because honestly, if we don't, then I look at my grandchildren now, and we've got to make this world better. We've got next year, I hope we will with the new administration, but we cannot have these digital ideas, these QR codes that are leading. If you're scanning your QR code right now, you are pushing your way into your own digital ID. And on that is going to be your vaccination record.
Right. That's really scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lack of privacy with your health. And people go, oh, I don't care. Well, you should. You should care about your privacy. A lot of people, before you fought for your freedoms and your rights and your ability to have your privacy and share what you want to share and make your own decisions based on your beliefs.
Do what you want to do. You're in control of your child. You're in control of your life. And so take that control back. The pediatrician's not in charge of your child, nor is a politician, nor is the president of the United States. You are in charge of your child. So do what I didn't do and stand up and take control.
Well said. Well said.
Well said, yes.
I remember Zen. We're actually friends with Zen from Moms Across America because she used to live, she was a neighbor basically. And she went to testify at Monsanto about glyphosate, right, Ron? She actually went to their headquarters in one of their meetings and got up and told her story. And when she was telling us this, I'm like, oh my God, Zen, weren't you afraid? Like, you know, people are going to be following you. She said, oh my God, I have no fear. It's all about the health of my children and and the future. It's not just her children, but it's all the children. She's like, when you have that passion and that motivation, nothing stops you. Nothing will stop you. Nothing can be she said that nothing is as fearful as like my children being harmed or injured or dying. And it goes back to that, a worried mother, it does better research than the FBI. So thank you, Mama Warriors.
Yes.
For those of you listening, for Polly, for caller Amy, it's amazing. You guys are the bravest group for sure.
Absolutely. So I have to leave you with something that recently said by Callie Mean. Thank you, Polly, for being a true hero. Well said, Lisa. I have to leave all of you with something recently said by Callie Means. RFK is saying one thing and one thing only about vaccines, that they should be studied like any other pharmaceutical product. The fact that it is the position of the media that these drugs should never be studied is dangerous and crazy. Well said. Well said.
Love him. Love Callie and Casey. If you agree and are a parent, a healthcare professional, or a concerned citizen, Vaxxed III offers an opportunity to engage with these critical issues and join a movement dedicated to transparency, accountability, and informed choice. CHG, Children's Health Defense, is offering free viewings of Vaxxed III Authorized to Kill on their website at chd.tv. So head there now, guys.
Absolutely.
And Vaxxed II on there as well. You can watch Vaxxed II and Vaxxed III free.
Oh, perfect. Go check them out and get caught up on all of this. You'll be blown away, guys. You will be blown away.
Okay. Well, guys, please be sure to review our show. 5 stars are always appreciated so we can continue to bring you excellent guests like Polly, true winners, true heroes in this fight for our health freedoms. Head over to healthyhomehacks.com for all the links in the show notes, and we'll see you next time on the next episode. Bye, everyone, and thank you, Polly. Thank you so much. Thank you for working, Diddle.
Bye. Thank you so much, Polly.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This episode of the Healthy Home Hacks podcast has ended, but be sure to subscribe for more healthy living strategies and tactics to help you create the healthy home you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.